Good morning, YouTube. Joining you on what is a early and wet Saturday morning. Today I'm going to work on replacing the louver on my 2013 Tesla Model S. Louver actually is just a fancy word for shutters. Think of horizontal blinds on your windows, open and close. That's pretty much the same as what a louver is. It goes in front of a radiator or an airport and opens to allow air to flow and closes to prevent the airflow. Now, in the Model S's, the actuators which control those louver open and close tend to fail quite often. I test drove, before I bought this car, I test drove another Model S and consulted with the Tesla Service Center on the service history of that Model S that I was test driving. And with the owner's permission, they released some of the details of the service history, and one of the things that came out was that it failed a thermal test. And what that means is that the louvers weren't opening and closing properly. The owner of that vehicle declined the service, and it was actually not a performance model, so I picked up this one, which is the P85, because, you know, it's extra power. So this one had been serviced regularly, but had not had an annual service since the previous year. So I bought it. First thing I did was take it in for its annual service. It was a little overdue, and one of the things that came out of that service was they did a thermal test, and this car failed the thermal test. So they sent me a quote to fix the problem, and the base quote was like $1,100. And so I started digging in and saying, okay, well, what are you doing? What is the problem here? What is a thermal test? And so they explained that a thermal test to see whether the louver is open or closed, and that the ones behind the radiator failed. And so I asked for an itemized list of the parts to see if I could order them on eBay. And then I had to ask the question, you know, on this parts list, it calls for a new horn. My car, you know, doesn't have a problem with the horn. Why is that part of this quote? And so they said, well, it's a complete retrofit. It's a whole new style of louver, and it requires us to remove the horns and reattach them in a new location, and so we have to order new horns. And I'm like, this doesn't make a lot of sense to me. So I did a little research, and in looking in the car, if the shutters aren't opening and closing, that is a problem with the actuator, in my opinion. So why not just replace the actuator? So I went on eBay, and for 50 bucks, found that you can get an actuator, no problem. There were actually 3 available online, so I picked up one. So today, that's what we're going to do. We're going to just replace the actuator that I believe to be malfunctioning, and that should fix the problem. Note that my car never had a fault code of any kind, and based on the tests, the service center couldn't tell me which louver it is. Now there are 4 in the Tesla. There are 2 that are attached to the bumper, and if the car is on, you can see them from the outside, you know, looking in. You can see there's kind of 2 radiators on the far edges of the front of the car, and then there's 2 more actuators that you can't see. When you take off the bumper, there is a port behind. There's a port behind the center radiator, and that port has some shutters that lead in from the sides, and that is where based on the parts list, I figured out that's one of those 2 failed. So I'll go ahead and show you how to change that out today. Coming up. My name's Kevin. I'm the owner of Austin EV Only. If you're new to the channel, we do repairs on all models of Tesla and the Chevy Volt, Fiat 500 Electric, and the list is growing every day. If you're new here, we'd love it if you'd subscribe. It'd mean a lot to us and help others find our channel. To start this process, we need to jack up the car. What I want to do first is I want to go ahead and raise the car up on the air suspension as high as possible. Then I'm going to put it into jack mode. So let me show you how we do that here. Come over to Control, Suspension. I'm going to go very high. And it will raise up with the door open. I have the door open here, you can't see it. When you're lowering it, the door has to be closed. Otherwise, it will not lower for fear that it will squash somebody. Okay, it's completed the jack to very high, so now we're going to put it in jack mode here. And it shows the tire off the car, so now we're ready to jack up the car. Now we're going to jack up the car. Be sure to use a jack pad to protect the underside of the car. Okay, so we have the car jacked up and on jack stands now. Make sure that you're using a good quality jack stand. You don't want to mess around and use a scissor jack and leave this on the jack. You want this to rest on the jack stands. It could save your life. So I'm using 3-ton jack stands, one on each side of the car. And with the car jacked up like this, now I'm going to have plenty of clearance to get underneath the front bumper here and release some of the rivets that are holding this bumper in place. There's also a number of rivets under this piece here, so I'll show you how to remove these pieces so we can gain access. From the top side, the first step is to remove this piece right here. It's a screw. Then for this piece here, you just start to lift up. You can lift up along the edge here, and it will pull up and away. I'm just doing it nice and slow. Repeat the process for the other side. Now with the side moldings removed, what that does is exposes this piece, and if I remember correctly, this piece just pulls up and out. So let's see if we can get that. There we go. And as long as we're up here, before we go into the car, I need to remove 2 rivets, one here and one here, as well as these screws. These are 10mm here and here. Before I take this out all the way, I'm just going to leave it loosely sitting in here, because when I take the rivets off on the bottom side, this whole thing is just going to fall off. So if I leave this in and screwed in just the tiniest bit, it'll catch it and hold it from falling down. Now looking from the underside, you're going to see there are quite a few rivets, so we're going to take all those out. Let's try not to lose these. Next, there's a hex head screw up in the wheel well. It's up right in here. Let's see if we can turn the flash on. Get close so we can see it. There we go, right there. So we're gonna go ahead and take these out, one on each side. And to gain better access, because the wheels are off, if I use enough strength here, I can simply just turn the wheel here. So that'll give me a little more clearance if I turn it that way. And then when I go to the other side, I can just turn it the other way. And this is gonna be a star type bit, T25. And do the same on the other side. Those 2 screws should be the last one, so I think this should be ready to just pull off once I remove these screws here. These just pull right out. Okay, and before you pull it away, there's a wire harness that's connected here. So don't pull away too hard. So here's the wire harness. We'll disconnect it now. Now this wire harness feeds in through a hole right here, but this hole is really small, not big enough to get your hand in, just big enough to get the wire harness in. So actually, we're gonna need to come in the space between the frunk and the fender here, reach in here and unclip it. Now you're not gonna be able to see what I'm doing while my hand's in there because it's gonna block the view, but I wanted y'all to know that there's just simply a tab. You need to press down on the tab to release and then pull the 2 pieces of the harness apart. So we'll do that now. Okay, I just heard it go click. And then there it is. I've just pulled it apart. Okay, so as I pull this piece out, the fender is falling to the ground. And now I can just pull the whole piece away. This is the back side of the front bumper we just took off, and I want to show you. So this is a louver. It's just a bunch of shutters that open and close. This is the actuator. There's another one on the other side, and those actuators, on this one we can see it's labeled 4, and this one's labeled 2. Now inside the car, now what are we looking at here? So this is a central radiator. I believe it's for cooling down the battery or the car itself. And then these 2 radiators on the side are for air conditioning. So the louver that I just showed you on the bumper open and close to cover these. And when you turn the air conditioning on, these get pretty hot, so they need to blow air on it. I'm pretty sure when I look in on the backside here that this must be a fan right in there, and that fan blows across the vents here and helps cool these radiators, which are connected to the air conditioning. So the problem with my car is that, so now we've got Louvers in here. This one's labeled 1, this is labeled 3, so there's 4 of them. So I got a replacement here. This one's labeled 3, but they're all interchangeable. They're all the exact same form factor, which means that anyone can be replaced with any other one. Now currently, if I look down this armature here, there is a closed vent there. And then on this side, well, you definitely can see this one. It's open. You can see that the flap here, this is dividing or bisecting this air vent here. So the question that needs to be answered is, the passenger side one is in the closed position, the driver's side is in the open position. I'm pretty sure when I looked at this before and I took the actuators off, I moved both of the louver to the closed position and then reattached the actuator. So I'm thinking that now that the driver's side is open again, that actuator must be working. Not to mention, why do they need to close off in the first place? Like, ever? Why can't they just be permanently open? If someone can answer that question, I'd love to hear in the comments. So I don't know, and I asked the service center directly, which actuator was it that failed on my car? And they weren't able to tell me. So I'm going to guess that it's the passenger side actuator that's broken, the one that's labeled number 1. So I'm going to replace it with this. It's labeled number 3, but again, they're all interchangeable. I'll move it to the open position, drive the car around, and we'll see what happens. And now we'll get in here and we'll get at these T20 sockets. I'll point them out in the video here and here. So getting access to that louver is going to be the hardest part of this whole job. So it's right down in there. I'll probably put a, there we go, right down in there. And this bar is in the way. Now what's this bar doing? Well, besides holding up the bumper, the horn is attached to it. So this is one horn, and then on the other side there's another horn. I think they make 2 different tones that together the tones sound harmonious and very beautiful as the Tesla goes. So for whatever reason, they're saying in the retrofit they need to replace these horns, and I don't understand that at all. This is completely out of the way. The radiator louver is all the way down in there. Louver for actuators down there. This thing is completely not touching anything to do with it. I don't understand. Of course, I'm not a Tesla technician, but I think they're trying to rip us off. I think that they're charging $1,000 for a retrofit kit that doesn't need it. All you need is a replacement actuator, and you're good as new again. So that's what we're going to do now. Getting at this guy is a little bit of a challenge again, because in my way is the horn holster. So I'm going to use a 1/4-inch driver, angle adapter, 1/4-inch bit, and then the last part of that is when putting the socket in here, at least for the particular driver that I use, there's nothing to hold it in, and it tends to fall out, and that gets really frustrating. So what I am doing, or what I did, is I'm just going to take a piece of packing tape and wrap the piece of packing tape around the union here where these two come together. There. Alright, we got it loose here, so we'll just pull it out. There it is. And now we got to undo the clip. So I'm going to turn that like so. And there it is. Not sure where exactly I was supposed to squeeze on it, but I guess just, okay, pull the clip out and then press down and it pulls out. So out with the old, in with the new, and you can see that from a form factor these are exactly alike in every way. So this is the old with the dirty head and the new one. So we'll reverse the process. Well, that's all for today, folks. If you found this video helpful, please smash that like button, and more importantly, please subscribe. That's how we make more videos. Until next time, this is Austin EV only.